Now I've got a little red square and I've got a red dot up. Okay, there we go.
We're going? All right. We'll call the meeting to order at 7 o'clock. First off, we'll go ahead. Everybody please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Thank you, everybody. We'll start off by doing a roll call. Starting off with Mayor Mosier, who is present. Deputy Mayor, Trustee Rick Hughes. Trustee Bradley.
Here.
Trustee Patterson.
Present.
And Trustee Gunther.
Here.
And we have Clerk Rose McQuaid.
Yes, here.
And Treasurer Jean Doucette. Here. All right, and I believe that's everybody that's accounted for. DPW Superintendent Corey Gross. Here. All right, and then also like to welcome members from our legislature, Dick Clancer and Paula Stockton. We appreciate you guys being here. Also, we have Salameka Process here as well. Thank you for being here as well. Before we get to the approval of minutes, I myself am going to be giving a mayoral address to the public and the Board of Trustees. As the presiding officer, I am addressing the Board of Trustees and to let the public know what has transpired since I took office last Monday. I would appreciate the opportunity to give this address without interruption, as it will take substantially longer. This mayoral address is to encourage the board to move forward and focus our efforts on the economical, water, sewer, and budget issues at hand, and begin working on the task of good government for the future for the village. Unfortunately, I have to begin by addressing previous conduct at Board of Trustees meetings. Last Monday, 4/6/15, at the organizational meeting, Trustees Nikki Bradley and Rick Hughes did not conduct themselves in a professional manner. The meeting was chaotic, with members of the board interrupting one another. The topic was one where we had very passionate views that were clearly in opposition. We all need to work on constructive arguments that do not degrade into cursing and shouting. In the future, I'd like the board to please adhere to the rules of procedure that was unanimously approved at the organizational meeting back on 4/6/15 for the board meetings. In these rules specifically, 1, board members must be recognized by the presiding officer before making motions and speaking. 2, a member, once recognized, may not be interrupted when speaking unless it is to call him or her to order. If a member is called to order, they must cease speaking until the question of order is determined. And 3, speakers must observe the commonly accepted rules of courtesy, decorum, dignity, and good taste. Again, I understand the topic was very sensitive and understand that sometimes it is difficult to argue rationally. In the interest of having productive meetings and decent behavior, including one's act, gesture, and expression, are best left outside. There will be no tolerance for vulgar language and any other acts that are unprofessional and prevent clear discussions. I'd like to finish discussing this topic by asking the board members and the public to treat each other with common courtesy and respect. Now, regarding the issues of today's business. On Wednesday, Trustee Few submitted correspondence. In the interest of preserving the entire context of his correspondence and give it the fairest hearing possible, I will read it in its entirety. The letter Trustee Few's wrote reads, quote unquote, "Dear Rose, some of the other board members and myself are having strong misgivings that we acted in haste at the organizational meeting. I intend to make a motion on April 13th that we re-explore the appointments of both Mr. France as attorney and Mr. Brecker as code enforcement officer. The two individuals in those positions previously, Ashley and Frank, did nothing to warrant this sudden termination without discussion. Please don't forward anything of a contractual nature to either Mr. France or Mr. Brecker until we discuss this Monday. I will call you sometime today, Rick Hughes. P.S. Make Dan aware of this, quote unquote." Before addressing the letter submitted by Trustee Hughes, there's another matter to inform the public. After Trustee Hughes submitted this letter, he contacted Mr. Brecker, and I presume Mr. France as well, requesting they not be present at tonight's meeting. It benefits the board and the village to get all the advice we deserve, and having our advisors here helps that. There are 8 issues I'd like to cover due to this letter, the phone calls made, and the way it reflects the previous way of doing business that needs to change. Number 1, first to address Trustee Fuse's letter. Trustee Fuse said he and the other board members are having strong misgivings that they acted in haste at the organizational meeting. The organizational meeting recording is available for the public, and 250 plus folks have already viewed it. The public can see for themselves. The board discussed the appointments of Mr. Brecker and Mr. France in detail. Resumes for both appointments were provided showing their experience and accomplishments. Reasons for their appointment was made clear. To summarize the reasons for their appointment, the previous attorney, Ashley, charged $150 an hour and mainly corresponded via email and phone to the previous mayor. I don't believe she ever attended board meetings and certainly attended none in the past 8 months when I was attending every regular meeting. Mr. France provided a contract to the board that he will work 60 hours for $5,000 for the year. That equates to $83.33 an hour. Mr. France will attend as many board meetings as possible and provide guidance to the whole board and work on issues regarding municipal law. I encourage anyone to find a municipal attorney with his credentials and only charge $83.33. In regards to the previous code enforcement officer, Frank, I advised the board that multiple residents were upset because it took 3 weeks or more to obtain a permit. Mr. Brecker, who is the CEO for multiple surrounding municipalities, has received exceptional recommendations from those communities, stating that he stops at their municipal office at least once a week to see if there are any outstanding requests for the village, any residents or businesses, and gets in contact with the requester and discusses their project. Mr. France and Mr. Brecker are providing a great service to the village, and it should be known. The appointment of Mr. France and Mr. Brecker is an advantageous one for the village, its residents, and businesses. Make it known that the public will know that I am doing what is in the best interest of the village. The village had the highest turnout for the village election in the past 20 years because the public wanted a change, and that is why I was elected mayor. Second, I need to address Trustee Fuse and other trustees on the Open Meetings Law, Article 7 of the Public Officers Law, Sections 100 through 111, also known as the Sunshine Law. It outlines basic requirements for the conduct of meetings by public bodies. The Open Meetings Law defines a public body as an entity consisting of 3 or more members who perform a governmental function and for which a quorum is required to conduct public business. Public Officers Law, Section 102 defines a meeting as, quote-unquote, the official convening of a public body for the purpose of conducting public business, unquote. Anytime a quorum of a public body gathers for the purpose of discussing public business, the meeting must be open to the public, whether or not the body intends to take action. Chance meetings or social gatherings are not covered by the law since these are not official meetings. However, public officials consisting of a quorum, which for this village is 3 out of 5 members, should not discuss public business at chance meetings or social gatherings. Moreover, if a court finds a violation of the Open Meetings Law, it may also require that members of the public body participate in a training session to be conducted by staff of the Committee on Open Government concerning the quote-unquote obligations imposed by the Open Meetings Law. I would encourage the board members to make their discussions in public, as required by law, and not engage in private decision-making where the public cannot see your motivations and rationale. We come to meetings for a purpose, and that is to conduct the business of the village in public. Thirdly, Trustee Fuse said he intends to make a motion to re-explore the appointments of both Mr. France's attorney and Mr. Brecker as CEO. I would like to explain to everyone how appointments work in the state of New York. Under Village Law, Section 3-301, the mayor must, subject to board approval, appoint all offices. The mayor and the mayor alone selects individuals for appointment. The board may only approve or disapprove of a mayor's selection. Appointment to offices for public officials is made for the entire term of the office. At the organizational meeting on April 6, 2015, all appointments were unanimously approved, and that is in the minutes and can be seen by all the public in the recording of the organizational meeting. Board trustees do not have the authority to appoint anyone to a position, but only to approve who the mayor appoints. The approval process is done, and we are not revisiting it. Fourthly, the board absolutely must understand the only way a public officer may be removed from office. The only statutory method by which a public officer, either elected or appointed, may be removed from office is set forth in Public Officers Law, Section 36, which provides that a village officer may be removed from office by a justice of the New York State Supreme Court for misconduct, maladministration, malfeasance, or malversation in office. This is an incredibly high standard to reach, and in the State Comptroller's opinion, 88-49, a public officer appointed for a fixed statutory term may be removed prior to the expiration of the term only by proceeding under Public Officers Law, Section 36. Also, in regards to case law, Salvador versus Ross in 2009, removal from office of town or village official is a drastic remedy reserved for unscrupulous conduct or gross dereliction of duty or conduct that connotes a pattern of misconduct and abuse of authority. Fifthly, I need to explain who gets to decide if we terminate an employee or appointed person. A, the position of an attorney can be either public officers or employees. Some attorneys serve as an independent contractor. On Monday, the village board agreed to the contract with Mr. France, which states Mr. France will work 60 hours for $5,000, which again equates to $83.33 an hour. If the Board of Trustees were to terminate the contract between Mr. France and the village per any contractual agreement, Mr. France would be awarded the sum of the contract, which in this case would be $5,000, and that would not be in the best interest of the village to pay for services not received. B, in regards to the position of CEO, serves as an employee with some elements of a public officer, but is not protected under Public Officers Law, Section 36. Mr. Brecker was appointed last Monday, and his appointment was already approved by resolution of the board. Regardless of whether someone working for the village is an employee, independent contractor, or appointed officer that also serves as an employee, the mayor has sole discretion on their removal. These appointments will not be revisited because it is not in the Board of Trustees' power to remove a village employee. Sixthly, Trustee Few said the two individuals in those positions previously, Ashley and Frank, did nothing to warrant this sudden termination without discussion. As I previously said, the board thoroughly discussed the appointments of Mr. France and Mr. Brecker and was unanimously approved at the organizational meeting on April 6, 2015, and the minutes and recordings prove that. We, the board, came out of executive session and unanimously approved the village attorney retainer agreement and appointment of Mr. France's Village of Cattaraugus attorney. Mr. France's appointment was sustained twice by the board, and Trustee Fuse made the motion and Trustee Bradley seconded it. I don't understand how Trustee Fuse and the other trustees involved are stating this. We, the board, discussed these appointments thoroughly. We, the board, discussed what the new appointees would bring to the village and how they could make an impact and better serve the village, its residents, and businesses. We, the board, unanimously voted yes for these appointments. I inquire, how does someone act in haste when we, the board, discuss this matter in detail? I inquire, how does someone retract their vote when they cannot? I inquire, do you have the better interest of the village at hand when services are being provided that previously were not? Also, I inquire, why not include myself, the mayor, in these discussions and hold a special meeting for the public? These backroom collaborations were a hallmark of how the village business was conducted before, and they must stop. Seventhly, Trustee Fuse said, please don't forward anything of a contractual nature to either Mr. France or Mr. Brecker until after we discuss this Monday. I must address the authority of a trustee to direct department officials. Village Law, Section 4-400 provides that it is the duty of the mayor to exercise supervision over the conduct of village officers and employees. Village Law, Section 4-412 provides that trustees do not possess any inherent authority to supervise or direct the work of subordinate village officers or employees. The responsibility and power to supervise all subordinate village officers and employees is vested in the village mayor. Trustee Fuse and the other trustees that agreed to this letter do not have the authority to make that statement nor decision. Eighthly, I need to address the phone calls made to Mr. Brecker and presumably Mr. France by Trustee Fuse. As stated before, trustees do not have the responsibility, power, nor authority to supervise the officers or employees per Village Law, Section 4-412. Only the mayor is to exercise supervision over officers and employees per Village Law, Section 4-400. I understand board members may not precisely know what they are allowed to do under the law, but I would appreciate if they follow the law in the future. The reason I'm having the Board of Trustees meetings recorded is to hold every board member accountable for the decisions we make and what we say. When I went door to door, I stated that I would record board meetings so that everyone can see what is being done. One thing I heard time and time again is that there were no conversations in regards to the police department abolishment. There was also no mention of that in any of the minutes, and this implies there was discussion outside the boardroom. Because of this, people have questioned there is behind-the-scenes decisions being made. This is why the village and I cannot tolerate seeing this happen again. I would request the board please conduct decision-making in public where it belongs. We, the village board, were elected to do what is in the best interest for the village. This past week, I attended the Cattaraugus County Strategic Planners Association meeting held last Tuesday on the 7th, which gave a presentation on the tax freeze and tax cap budget passed by the state. The village clerk and I went to another meeting this past Thursday on the 9th to the Cattaraugus County Municipal Officials Association, and another presentation was given in regards to the tax freeze and tax cap budget and how to receive the incentive for our property owners. This is what our focus will be going forward. Issues like the tax freeze and tax cap budget, not quarreling over appointments which cannot be revoked. This board must work together to accomplish anything, especially if we want to make progress. There are many topics that need our attention and not needless backpedaling. Another main concern is that this village, along with the town, the county, and the state, is in an economic war. And let me explain that briefly. Research has been done on what counties have the highest property taxes as a percent of home price. Cattaraugus County is ranked in the top 25 as one of the highest property tax counties across the nation, and that is over 3,000 counties. Cattaraugus County taxpayers are paying more than 1% more than Westchester County, where the average home price is above $400,000. If this village, along with its residents, plans on existing in this area, we must bring new businesses to our village and the town. If not, the next 20 years will become even more difficult, and who knows how grave the future could be if we do not act now. It will take time for all of us to improve and conduct the business of the village better, but I know we can. I appreciate the efforts and passion of the board, and I know we share the same goals. Concluding, I want everyone to know that I want to see this village make progress. I want to see committees established to help further our commerce, our water, our sewer, and etc., because the board, including myself, do not have all the answers. This village has already succeeded at getting more community involvement, and we, the board and village residents, must remain connected so we can work effectively as a community. I want nothing more than to see this village prosper, and that is what I will devote my time and efforts. Thank you. Alrighty.
Coming in about now. Well, we'll wait.
Alright, moving forward, approval of the minutes for March 9th, 2015 regular board meeting, and also April 6th, 2015, the organizational meeting.
We need to take those as separate issues.
Okay, so in regards to the regular board meeting on March 9th, 2015, do I have a motion for the approval of them?
I'll make a motion.
Second?
I'll second that.
And all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? No? It's unanimous. In regards to April 6, 2015 organizational meeting, do I have a motion for the approval of the minutes?
I will make a motion to tentatively accept those minutes, and despite your wonderful oratory, under the condition that we go back into that meeting and look at certain aspects that I feel need to be rescinded.
Will the board unanimously approve all
That's not the
appointments?
motion. The motion is that I will vote to approve those minutes only under the provision that we go back in later today, probably after the public comment section, because we have a proclamation due, and we re-explore certain appointments that I feel in the best interest of the village need to be rescinded.
Cannot rescind a vote that was already
Then
done.
I move to adjourn.
This plan, I'll second that.
All those board members in favor of approving the organizational meeting minutes under the proviso that we go back in later this evening and talk about certain positions that we do have the right to rescind. I have checked. One thing my family does not lack is attorneys. We have the right. I taught the reason, and let me elaborate. The reason I called Mr. Brecker, who sounded like a wonderful man, and this gentleman here, who I talked with at length on the phone, I have nothing but the utmost respect for you. We had a nice conversation. And you assured me, you mentioned on the phone, you have the power to hire, and I hate to use the term to fire.
Attorneys, though, if you want, I would like a memo prepared to discuss the issue
Thank you.
in detail.
Thank you. So do I have a second to the motion?
I'll second.
Okay. All those in favor of that motion, please signify by saying
Aye.
aye. Aye. Opposed?
Aye.
3-2, motion carried. We will be explained.
All right.
Thank you,
I have
thank you, sir. I am so
No,
sorry.
it's all, I understand.
Mr. France is the village attorney in regards to the research that I have done, in regards to the address that I made. Those appointments and everything covered within the organizational meeting cannot be revoked, correct?
As a point of order, I was planning on addressing hiring and firing when it comes down to the attorney legalities, but if we want to jump ahead on that. I prepared a memo for each of the board members after the heated discussion that was last meeting about Cody's position. And in your address, you stated as to who could be fired. Your conclusion is substantially correct, though the issues of law that get to that conclusion were a little bit muddy. So, this is a memo for each of the records so that you can follow along. There are three categories of people who work for a village, essentially. There can be four. We'll simplify the discussion by saying there's three. There are public officers that are elected, and a very limited number that are appointed that have protection under Public Officer Law, Section 36. That's all of the elected officials, as well as the clerk and the treasurer and a deputy clerk or deputy treasurer. Any of those people, which includes all the board members, the mayor, and those other positions, can only be removed by a Supreme Court judge. Village employees that nevertheless hold some power as a public officer are protected instead under Public Officer Law, Section 30. That states substantially that somebody can be removed at will by the mayor, but that there are protections for that person potentially in an action if they choose for wrongful discharge under either civil service law, or if there is one, a collective bargaining agreement, if whatever employee is subject to that agreement. And those are both very specific determinations that are different from one employee or position to another. The third category is just people who are straight employees who exercise no discretion as a public officer of the village. Those are employees that are hired, potentially with the say-so of the board, but are terminated only by the mayor. Now, I did some research on this issue because it came up, and there was a question as to what the village law says. The village law only speaks to who hires and what the appointment process is, but it is in fact entirely silent on who terminates any position. However, the courts have unanimously ruled that the mayor has exclusive power to terminate public employees. In fact, there have been some cases where the entire board voted in order to appoint a special person in order to investigate the position of somebody who was being terminated. At that point, it was a code enforcement officer. And the court said only the mayor had the power to appoint that special board because only the mayor can delegate a power that only the mayor has. So if the appointment is valid, only the mayor has the power to do the termination of that appointment. That would be for nearly every public employee. An attorney, however, falls into a special category. And I have case law that goes one way, but not potentially the other in terms of the situation here. If the board appointed a special attorney for the mayor's office, and the mayor didn't want it, as the sole decision maker for the person receiving all of the authority, the mayor could dismiss that attorney from service, and they would be, under the rules of professional conduct, rules of ethics, required to recuse themselves from it and not serve. I presume, though I have not seen a case, nor have I seen an ethics opinion on it, that the same might be true if the entire board voted in order to appoint an attorney to advise the organization. But it might be the case that the Public Officer Law, Section 30, or the contract law in Village 4-100 apply, in which case it would be the mayor. I'm not actually 100% positive on it. I don't know that there's been a court case or an ethics opinion on it. I would, of course, submit to the board's will in either case. So when it comes, sorry.
Question.
Yeah.
You have not rendered service here, as you know.
No, that's correct. I came to the last meeting.
Thank you.
I prepared this only in order to determine what was going on for the village. I'm here present, plus the research into this issue.
Thank you. Thank you. One more question. So you signed a contract, as you said.
Have I signed a contract? The village entered a contract with me when they passed a resolution approving of my retainer agreement. And I signed an offer of retainer for those services at the last meeting.
In order to clear myself for that phone call,
Mhm.
I was impressed with you, sir, very much. I just wanted to say to you,
No, absolutely, I
the
understand.
journey here until we had discussed, I thought this would come about in a more civil manner. Same thing, same courtesy I extended to Mr. Brecker, who sounded like a wonderful man. He said, we still had some doubts. We were not sure, is it? Okay, and even now, I still have some doubts. So, thank you very much.
Go ahead and finish.
No, that was
That was
the
it?
point of law on
Okay.
termination.
So,
we have a resolution passed and carried with a vote of 3-2 to re-explore certain aspects of the organizational. Can I just elaborate a little bit more? Number one, I do not think we need an auditor of claims. I've always been comfortable signing every voucher, as has Trustee Bradley, as has Trustee Gunther, and this saves the village $500. I would like to see that. I want to go in and re-explore that. Okay? So, motion on the table, motion approved. Do we move on?
in question for Mr. France, in regards to that, so, because I'm very new to this, I apologize to the community. I don't know essentially how everything rolls and all that. So with this, even though the appointments and everything has been voted upon, everything was unanimously carried, if we go back and discuss, I mean, we can always discuss an organizational meeting or the appointments and all that. However, though, there is nothing,
If we were to rescind the
Hold on.
resolution.
I'm gonna finish.
Okay, I'm sorry.
In regards to that, I guess I am trying to see what's the reason to go back when it's already completed, it's already official for the next term. Everything that we just went
Right.
through.
Excuse me.
One second, let Mr. France finish, answer the question, please.
If I understand your question, it's that the resolutions were made in the past and what degree of finality they have?
Correct.
According to the lawyer I talked to, none.
Finality of resolutions, as far as I understand, when it comes to certain matters of public law, that the board, any law that they could make, they can unmake. If it's in their power to make a law, then they can unmake it. Appointments, though, and I'm not positive whether this is a separate category, may be treated as a one-time issue, and I'm not entirely certain about that. It would require some additional research, and I would be happy to do it.
Okay, so then, another question for you in regards to, obviously the board is, certain members of the board care to look at the office that was created, or the position that was created for auditor of claims, that one trustee would hold, and sign all the paperwork, or sign all the vouchers or invoices, so that would prevent the board from having, all the members of the board to have to deal with it, and that only the board would just have to approve the abstract. If any board member chooses to look at any specific invoice or has any questions, they can come in earlier at their leisure, or they can even request at the meeting for the clerk to provide that invoice. So it's primarily to save time, but in regards to that position as well, because when I say it's not an appointment, if I'm correct,
I don't believe it is, but again, I would want to research it, because in terms of creating or eliminating a position, there may be a special law that comes into play in that case. But my understanding would be what Trustee Few said, that's any resolution that's made, it's making of essentially a local law without the full law process. If it can be made by the legislature, it can be unmade by the legislature.
okay, but in regards to, and then just to finalize, and then Nikki, I'll let you speak. in regards to the appointments and positions that the board supported and everything in the organizational meeting, as far as I understand, in regards to my research and in regards to my address that I made, that only I have the authority to appoint and only I have the authority to terminate. However, though, the board has the authority to support that appointment, to vote on that.
Or not support.
But now that the board has already approved of it, it goes into the ladder of having myself end the positions with those employees, correct?
Because it's not a legislative act of the board, I believe that you are correct, but I'm not 100% positive. But that would be my understanding from what I read in the law.
Thank you.
Can I elaborate on a different piece? I have an email from a lawyer right here that basically says, even if Dan signed a retainer agreement with an attorney, he can back out at any time. Clients can freely fire or not proceed with hiring an attorney at any time. Do you represent the mayor or do you represent us?
The retainer agreement says that I represent the municipality as a corporation.
Okay, so does Nikki go ahead with your?
What I was gonna say is not all of the stuff that I am interested in talking about has to do with appointments. There's other stuff that I'd like to just kind of pick out. I mean, it's, if I were to look at the organizational meeting minutes, I pulled out from last year, the organizational meeting paper, it'd be part of resolution number 2. Last year, the deputy clerk pay was $10.30 an hour. This year, it's $11.25 an hour, which is a raise of 95 cents, which is 9.2%, which, I don't know, I haven't even gotten a 3% raise this year, let alone a 9.5. So, I mean, I just, in my opinion, this is just one of a few things that I just feel should be revisited. And we're not trying to, start issues or anything, we're just trying to address things that we publicly still have questions about. And I feel that if we have questions, I feel that we should be able to ask them.
Absolutely. So
is that motion carried or not?
well, with 3 to 2, that motion would be carried, that we revisit the organizational meeting from the 6th. So first off, in regards to,
I would hope that we could revisit that later in the meeting after the public comment period and they have a proclamation. So can we table that until maybe
after correspondence?
After we'll take reports and after correspondence. These good people have other places to go, some of them. Okay. So is that agreed upon?
That is agreed upon, yes, that will be fine.
Can I make one more quick point? Okay, you talk about openness. Can I just ask, I was surprised last Wednesday when my wife came home and said to me, guess what's on YouTube? And I said, what? And she said, the village board meeting. I was not informed at that organizational meeting that these proceedings were being taped. Were you aware?
May I speak to that?
Wait, can I just ask, were you aware?
I knew just because I saw him set it
Walt,
up.
were you aware?
No, I wasn't.
No, okay. In the NICOM handbook, which, and the bullet you eliminated when you wrote, it just says, the board has the authority to adopt reasonable rules governing the use of cameras and recording devices during open meetings, and those rules must be written, conspicuously posted, and provided to those in attendance upon request. So much for openness, Dan.
Again,
When are you going to tell me this?
may I-
Yes, ma'am.
I'm sorry, there are signs posted on.
I know that, but we were supposed to, it said, the board is to adopt reasonable rules governing the use of cameras, recording. We never discussed this. This came out of the blue. I didn't know this. I have no objection. I have no objection to this whatsoever. But I also contacted said attorney, we do not have the right to post those to the internet until we do meet, because there are First Amendment rights involved.
And let me answer that for you.
Okay.
In NICOM, it does also state that the public had, any
Right.
public member, okay, even though I'm a trustee,
Right.
we're all in the public,
Got it
that
right
any
there.
meeting, correct,
Right.
okay, to record. It does not have to be, as long as it's not in view.
It's not in view, I read the whole thing, it's not in view and it's not invasive, but I would have liked to have known that. I would have worn a better shirt. But at the same time, we still have to establish those rules, don't we?
So when we
That's
pass,
fine, I
let me
have no
finish, let
objection.
me answer to that. So, when you said about all that, at the first bullet point of the meeting, we adopted the guidelines, or we adopted the general rules of procedure that are by NICOM, which state the guidelines for use of recording equipment.
Right, but when you put it down, you omitted that bullet. That was not in what we still have to talk about this. I'm fine with it.
Okay,
I was a school teacher, I don't really care, it doesn't bother me, but I thought, I don't wanna use the word underhanded, but you could have at least stood up and told us.
well, I apologize if you feel that it was not expressed, or if it was pretty well provided when
But you
we,
didn't,
hold on, let me
Okay.
finish. In regards to that, I had the clerk post in pink paper that the meeting is being recorded. Now, you have good eye color,
yeah, I
I'm sure
didn't,
you
guess
can
maybe I
see
didn't
that.
say it when I came in. Nikki, were you informed, or did you just happen to notice it?
I noticed
You
it,
noticed it.
I didn't, I mean, there wasn't like a verbal anything,
Thank you.
but I also, I mean, I understand that's what's in NICOM, but I also have to point out that we were not briefed, I guess, in NICOM. We were always going
Never-
with Robert's
It's
rule.
never happened before.
Well, let me explain that.
It's okay, you don't have to, I
No.
understand.
I will answer that. In regards to Robert's Rule of Order, okay, you must have a parliamentarian be present to handle and make sure that everything is being followed accordingly. I can state that I am not a parliamentarian, and it's pretty much the only people that are typically would be attorneys. And they have to be present in order to make sure that everything for Robert's Rules is in order. I contacted NICOM because most municipalities that don't hold more than 300 people in a general capacity for the public don't follow Robert's Rules of Laws because it's extremely difficult, and I for myself don't have the time to go through this thick book of Robert's Rules of Law. That's why most municipalities adopt the general rules of procedures, because it's more fitting for our small town communities.
I totally get it.
I get it, I understand.
I-
would
but
just
I-
like
and I
to have
just-
been informed.
I was just saying that that's what we had done, and for the last, I mean, I've been in here, I've only been in for 3 years, but every year that's what's been on paper, you know what I mean? So I guess I didn't realize that there were gonna be any.
I didn't-
So my question to everyone on the board is that in regards to the organizational meeting, when we were going through it, since most of you besides Tom and myself are tenured at this, then you would have seen that the changes in regards to such as not following Robert's Rules of Laws, but following NICOM's general rules of procedures. Also in regards to everything else with the organizational meeting, why did you not raise those questions when we came across
Because-
them?
Because we had a mayor that briefed us. We had at least some kind of heads up as to what we were walking into. Everything that was on the organizational meeting was, I mean, different, down to,
It was a blank, we filled them in.
we always filled them in together. We come in and they're all filled in, and we're pretty much being told that we have zero power to do anything, and I got in trouble for saying anything last time, so I don't know.
Well, let me answer that for you, Nikki. First off, Is it wrong of me then that when we approach a meeting and we're going through a document that I didn't brief you on it, whether that's to be right or wrong, that you use your own judgment and your own mental capacity
when
to be able
I'm
to see?
sitting-
Hold on. In regards to that, can you not see that for yourself and say, hey, there. So in regards to that, you should have came up with that, okay, here we go.
That's why we're revisiting.
But who is to say that to brief or not to brief in regards to what we're to go over is to be the proper way or not to be the proper way?
All I said was we were briefed. I'm sorry that I said that. Would you like me to use a different word?
You will calm down.
No.
There's no reason to
Well,
yell, okay?
I'm not.
Today
That's
you
not
told,
yelling.
today you told
You
Rose
don't
to
see.
turn it on. We were aware. The last meeting, I wasn't aware. Let's move on.
All right, so in regards to the public comment section, where's the
Here you
sign
go.
sheet?
Sorry this is taking so long, folks.
First off,
I have a dumb question. With the organizational meetings in question, can you conduct business?
That was you guys are so, Rob, that you, in the town
We
of
can,
12
we've
years,
tabled it,
I've dealt
we've
with
tabled it till
municipalities,
later.
you guys
Yes,
are
there's only a
the
few,
most,
there's only a few
incoherent
aspects of
group
it that we
people
have.
I ever met. As far as I'm concerned, I'd take my vote and rip it right back out and give it to all of you, just by what I've seen here in the last 2 weeks.
I agree.
You guys are you're jumping.
Yep.
And I know, I got my name on there for public comment, but I won't get an answer because you guys can't even figure out what paperwork you wanna look at. And that's wrong. We voted for you guys.
We're
Now,
very
you're
tired
just
about
like Obama. You guys.
Okay, I wouldn't go that far, man.
I mean, you
That's
guys
a slap
get mad
in
up
the
there.
face.
There's a tremendous difference of opinion up here, sir. I apologize. Go ahead. Go
All right,
ahead.
so-
There's a tremendous bitterness up
Mhm.
there that comes across to me. A
Yes.
tremendous bitterness that shouldn't be on a board that has to work together for the village.
And honestly, Rose, there was stuff said last week about, Rose and the thing about her and the thing about the YouTube thing or Daniel having it on there. I'm sorry, Rick, you
I
didn't hear
didn't-
it, but there was, and I think there's
But I
just a
didn't
lot of
know it myself,
nitpicking
but Walter
going
did.
on.
Let somebody finish what they're speaking.
No, but I'm sorry, it's just a lot of nitpicking, and
Thank
I think it's ridiculous. I think you guys got a lot more work to do besides just this.
Okay, so starting off will be, who wanted to make a public comment was Rick Lefebvre. Listed as a maybe, did you want to state anything, sir?
I'm a little concerned what I'm seeing here today. And we've watched this village die for 40 years. When I came here, we had doctors, we had lawyers, we had veterinarians, we had viable businesses. And it continues to sink. We need a change, a radical change. We need to all pull together. And you're having a hard time working the process out to get to the life raft as the Titanic is sinking, okay? Every one of you that owns property in this village has a second mortgage that is held by the state. Nikki, your house, I went, and you can look this up online, and it's common knowledge. But let me just dig it out here, please stand by me. Your house is at 103 South Street, right? Okay, and your fair market value of your house is $72,192. You're paying 4.9% in taxes. That means you have a second mortgage of $46,000 at 4.5%. Rick Fuse, your house on Gale Drive, you got a house of $82,192. You're paying 4.9%. That's equivalent to $353 a month. And that means you have a $56,000 second mortgage. Guys, it's only gonna get worse because the population of Cattaraugus County is going down. We don't have businesses. And part of the problem is everybody fights everybody. It's like the clans down here. You need to all start pulling together. In lifeguarding, they teach you cannot save a drowning person that does not want to be saved. They have to help. Start pulling together. This is ridiculous.
And I would like to add one more
Hold on.
thing. I'm sorry, were you done?
I hope I'm done. I don't know. It's all that she-
He's done.
My wife says I'm done.
Okay, just one more thing.
You can talk after everybody has their moment.
Oh, I'm sorry.
In regards to, Mr. LaFever, appreciate your comment that you made. I know that how we've conducted ourselves at the very beginning of this meeting shows that there is not a unified front, and that we must have a unified front to succeed, to continue to live in this area. And I appreciate your words that you brought to the board. Does anybody in the board have anything else to say to Mr. LaFever?
Rick, I'm anxious to get together and work here. We just need to re-explore some things that I still feel we did in haste last Monday. That's all. All these kids, everybody ever yourself all sat in my classrooms. I know them all. They're all good people. But let us at least get our groundwork in order before you throw stones at us, okay? Let us just re-explore that later, and we'll take it from there.
Does anybody else have anything to say to Mr. LaFever?
Thank you for coming. And it's good to see people out. I appreciate your input and your research, and it's definitely something that we need to look into. Definitely need to start working together, and we need to start having more transparency and figuring out what we're doing. This is only our second go, guys. We're getting there. It's gonna take a little time, but we're gonna get there.
Thank you. All right, next on the list is Mr. Pritchard.
I have a question first, if you don't mind. I had asked to be added to the agenda because I had a special proclamation to read tonight. One that is not seen very often across the state. The reason I asked to be added to the agenda for that purpose was that I wanted to also have a comment in the public comment section for myself. I was told I didn't need that. I was told it's unnecessary. And then my second request was not answered at all. And by the looks of the agenda, I'm not on here. So my first question is, if I go through this process of the proclamation, do I still have the opportunity to make my own public comment?
You have 3 minutes per the public comment that is stated in the general rules of procedures.
Okay, we can play that.
No problem.
So what about timeout? He has something like really big and important.
And in
He should
reference-
be able to speak separately.
So
Okay,
we can grant
Hold
him
on,
more
let me
time.
address this, okay? In regards to that, if any of those that attended the fireman's banquet, in regards to the proclamation that was given by Senator Young to any public officer or anybody that serves, okay? She had representatives there, and it literally took no more than 45 seconds to read that. So, to have 3 minutes to state the proclamation for Gene is a wonderful thing, and the board would never, ever stop him from being able to read the proclamation to Gene for his great service for all of us.
You were so disrespectful.
It's only important to those of us who have been through this, so. Cool.
That's enough, come to order.
Okay. If I use my 3 minutes up on this, then it's for a good cause. All right, I have a New York State. Sorry. Go ahead. Sorry. Thank you. I have a proclamation by Senator Kathy Young honoring Eugene Jean Doucette for his 40 years of public service as treasurer for the village of Cattaraugus and the town of Nueva. Whereas it is in the sense of this New York State Senator to acknowledge significant milestones in the careers of distinguished public servants and esteemed residents of this great Empire State. And whereas attendant to such concern, this member of the New York State Senate is justly proud to honor Eugene Doucette upon the occasion of celebrating his 40 years of service to the village of Cattaraugus and the town of New Albion. And whereas Gene was born on April 9th, 1953, now we all know the truth. I won't tell you who gave that up. To Dorothy and James Doucette in Gowanda, New York. And whereas he graduated from Cattaraugus High School and later attended night classes at St. Bonaventure University. And whereas for 43 years, Gene has worked at the Bank of Cattaraugus in Cattaraugus, New York. And whereas on April 7th, 1975, Gene became the treasurer for the town of New Albion and the village of Cattaraugus, a position he continues to hold with distinction and honor. And whereas Gene and his wife Deborah have been married 42 years, the couple has been blessed with 3 children, Robert, Christopher, and Sarah. They've been further blessed with 5 grandchildren, Andrew, Brendan, Evan, Samantha, and James. And whereas Gene has also been active in several civic organizations, including his membership with the Dayton Sportsman Club for more than 20 years, Gene has also served as a member of the Cattaraugus Volunteer Fire Department. And whereas he is not spending, and whereas when he is not spending time with his beloved family, Gene enjoys bowling, gardening, playing with the family's dog, and hunting. And whereas it is the intent of this member of the New York State Senate to publicly recognize those who have made significant contributions to the citizens and communities in this great Empire State, now therefore, by way of this proclamation, Senator Catherine M. Young honors Eugene Doucette upon his 40 years of service as treasurer for the village of Cattaraugus and the town of New Albion, and a copy of this proclamation, suitably engrossed, should be transmitted to Gene Doucette. Proclaimed this 13th day of April, 2015, excuse me, by order of Catherine M. Young, New York State Senate, 57th Senate District.
Thank you, Robert.
Speech.
I love you, Gene.
Get in there, Mr. Cullen.
I can get Medicare.
No. Thank you, Eric, for reading that proclamation by Senator Young. It's very appreciative. And I know that I can say for the whole community how grateful we are for Gene and for the service that he has given to all of us.
Thank you.
All right, going on to the next public comment.
Do I not have any more time? Do I not have any time? It's up to you. It's your
It
rules.
says,
I'm
it
just
says
asking.
in our rules of order,
I'm just
board
asking.
members may, you can grant the use of,
Don't make it up.
It was
no,
discussed last week.
but yeah, the public may speak only during the public meeting period and, it's highlighted, and at any other time, if a majority of the board agrees. So, you got your 3 minutes.
You have your 3 minutes.
Okay, so I'll fall apart here. Just a little comment about the village and the history of everyone's tax rates here. That seems to be a very common theme here tonight, especially just recently. I wanted everyone to know that in the last 4 years, the property tax, which is based on, the expenses of the village, from expenses of the board, to expenses of the superintendent, DPW, to the police, to, has gone up a total of $6,553 in 4 years. 4 years. That's on top of, or that includes considerable increases in retirement contributions, considerable increases in insurance contributions and expenses, and on top of that, a 2% reduction in the overall assessment of the village. Those are facts. Facts. Numbers don't lie. They're facts. So I take resentment to this new direction. We've been heading in a new direction for 4 years now, okay? And it was started prior to me, okay? I had a graph of these numbers. It's quite astounding to look at. There is another chapter to NICOM that, towards the end, but it's about ethics. Chapter 12, municipal ethics. Municipal ethics starts right out with a quote by Teddy Roosevelt, our 26th president. We cannot afford to differ on the currency, the tariff, and foreign policy. We can afford, we can afford. But we cannot afford to differ on the question of honesty if we expect our republic permanently to endure. This is personal. And if you don't believe it, keep coming to these meetings. You might want to go to the town meetings too. It's personal. I'm done. Thank you.
So to address what Mr. Pritchard has said, I don't know where you see that, where the village is moving to be personal, when I know myself and Tom, as the two new elected officials, have been coming to board meetings for many months. I've attended 8 consecutive ones before taking office, and I've attended periodically and was never able to because of my job. And now I have a new position, and I'm able to designate the time to be mayor. I mean, it takes an awful lot of time. And I can attest that I only love this village. I moved to Indianapolis, which is a bustling city with growth. I mean, their taxes and everything are much lower than around here. But I came back here because this is home. This is home, and I wanted to do what is best for this village. That is why I ran. I did not want to see the police department be abolished. That's why residents in this village came up in regards to passing a petition to stop that from happening. I will end it all right now that there is nothing personal in regards to this. This is all that we need to work forward, or work together to move forward. There's nothing against you, Mr. Pritchard. There's nothing against any of the other board members, except that we have a lot of work to do. Want to see a bunch of businesses being brought up, and that's the course of action that we need to take so that, as I said in my statement, that we still even exist 20 years from now. And that's going to even go on beyond my time in office or any of our times in office. So, in regards to that, I love this community, and that is why I know I ran for mayor. Tom, do you have anything to add for that?
I do. The decision to run for me was one that, in the very beginning, was somewhat joking. I'll run, And then I got to thinking about it, and you know what? Why should I joke about it? It's a very serious matter. It's a very serious office. We have very serious issues as a village. And I take them all very seriously. That's why, as the elections were coming up, went out and talked to a lot of people, went door to door, and did some good old-fashioned campaigning. and heard a lot of opinions and a lot of views from many people who've never been in office, who have been in office. You take those all to heart and you mix them all inside, figure out what you personally feel is gonna be best, because after all, you were elected, we were elected to do what is best for this village. There's a confidence that everyone's has in